So I wanted to use that as a transition in a way to discuss a few of the interesting people who make, being Jewish people, who make up, important history regarding the revolutionary times, and hopefully, we'll tie it together at the end when we talk about the Touro synagogue, George Washington, et cetera, et cetera. Give me 1 second. Sorry. We have to introduce. We're going to introduce ourselves to a few people now. As I pointed out, the amount of Jewish people in America at this time was not a great deal, and each one, might be historically important, might not be historically important. In the grand scheme of things, the few thousand maybe Jews in America in the 1700s will be overshadowed in the 1820s when 400,000 immigrants will come. So most people will forget about those original Jews, and those original Jews, probably most of their descendants don't end up remaining Jewish. But
is that why they're not in secular textbooks that Jews were a part of this time? Because I feel like I've learned history for so long and American history, and I've never once connected the fact that there were Jews there.
Right,
I've always thought.
Right, there's a few, and we'll talk about one or two that were important today. But in the grand scheme of things, there were very few of them, and most of them didn't not that important. I hate to say it like that. Yeah. There's one man is. We'll talk about him today, but otherwise maybe two. But again, history is written by those who want to write history. But the Jewish community in general definitely had very little to do with the revolution. Very, very little. Let's start with. Let's see if I can find it first. Let's skip that. Skip that. Skip that. Skip that. We'll get to that in a second. Skip. We did that already. Okay, this we'll get to in a second. Cargill will do here. This man. We'll start with this man. This man is the name of Jonas Phillips. He was a veteran of the American Revolutionary War. He found one of the founders of the synagogue in Philadelphia called Mikveh Israel. A very important person. He had very important grandchildren. He had two very important grandchildren and then great-grandchildren. He had a lot of children. I think 21 it says here. That's just a ridiculous amount of children. But that's not why we're going to talk about him right away. In one of the handouts that you have, I think it's handout class 3. No, not the handout class 3. Here's the comment that I was looking for. Okay, we'll leave that. Here we go. Let's just flip this around. We have a letter. This is printed in the American Jewish Historical Society. This letter was written by Jonas Phillips, July 28, 1776. And he's writing the letter, and actually the letter is in a little bit Yiddish. And it's written in Yiddish probably to avoid the censors. Don't forget, there's a war going on. It never made it to its destination because it got intercepted by the British. So I speak Yiddish, but it's much harder Yiddish. Well, we'll just do the English translation. Philadelphia, July 28th, 12th Menachem Ab. Peace, my beloved, my kinsman, my good friend, Gumpel. Okay. As it is not always possible to send a letter to England on account of the war, I must send my letter by way of Saint Ishushin, one of the little islands in the Caribbean. As no English goods can come over at all, and much money can be earned with Holland goods if one will venture. So this is really a business letter. There's a blockade. There's a war going on. We all know what happens when there's a war. You can't get goods in and out. So that's why the prices of the world today, or especially of grain, right, have skyrocketed because of the war in Ukraine. So he says, listen, in America, they can't get the goods. So if you could send some goods here, we can make a killing. I can assure you 400% profit. I could write my meaning better in English than Judeo-German, meaning I'm writing in Yiddish so that the censors won't understand, but really I can explain to you better. Now listen to what he says. Now, the point of this is July 28th. The Declaration of Independence is barely 3 weeks old. The war will make all England bankrupt. The Americans have an army of 100,000 fellows, and the English only 25,000 in some ships. That's unbelievable optimism. It's absolutely not true. Right? You go back to Hamilton, and you could, or any history, you'll know that the American people, there were not enough soldiers in America, and the English were vastly outnumbered. Then they kept bringing in soldiers and Hessians, etc. The Americans have already made themselves like the states of Holland. The enclosed is a declaration of the whole country. Aha! How it will end, the blessed God knows. The war does me no damage, thank God. And he tells them, so here you have, we have testimony that in July 28th, this wonderful Jewish man, Jonas Phillips, sent a copy of the Declaration of Independence saying this is what's going to be a free and independent country. They're going to win. If you'll take 100 guild and give it to my mother, I'll pay you back. Here's the stuff you should buy and send me, and we can make a lot of money. Okay? Yeah, you just read that. Okay, that's very interesting. Why is it interesting? It's interesting for a number of reasons. Here you have the belief of Jonas Phillips that America is going to win. That's in and of itself, that to me is always interesting. You have the belief that what else? You have the belief that they can make money. The England's going to fall apart. All very interesting things that you see from a random letter to a friend, a cousin who is not really clear. Kinsman is a cousin. Now, why do I mention all this? So, in theory, Jonas Phillips is a regular person. Now, he's not such a regular person because if you continue further down in the handout, it's called handout again. The handout is called Handout Class Resources. Take a look. It's very interesting. Just jumping ahead, there was one of the famous Americans was named Benjamin Rush. He was actually a doctor. For those of you who took my American medical, my medical ethics class, of the Jewish one, but definitely the secular one, I speak about him. He tells about going to Jonas Phillips' house to attend the wedding of Jonas Phillips' daughter, who married a young man by the name of Levy from Virginia. So Benjamin Rush, non-Jew, very, very important American, went to the story. Showed up at 1 o'clock. People were praying. Probably Mincha, old rabbi. I didn't understand the word they were saying. Okay, very good. They covered their heads. They were praying, right? Mincha. As soon as the prayer ended, about 20 minutes, a parchment was produced, written in Hebrew, a deed of settlement, a ketubah. The ceremony is followed by the erection of a beautiful canopy of white and red silk in the middle of the floor. Right. This is right. 4 men held it. The bride came down the stairs. Her face was covered. Here you have a random American describing a Jewish wedding in Philadelphia in 1780s. She was right. The priest, the rabbi, chates a Hebrew prayer. They drink another prayer. They put a ring on her finger, and then the Jen sips the wine. He took the glass and threw it upon a large dish at his feet. So he took the glass that he actually drank from and broke it, and everyone, what's called wonderful. I was told in Europe they marry outside. It's a very interesting description of a wedding, a Jewish wedding in Philadelphia in 1787. And I want to make note of this, that he was married, so Jonas Phillips' daughter is married to Levy. Why is that relevant? And now this is a little bit going off topic, but there is one of the most famous properties in America is Thomas Jefferson's estate. Does anybody know what Thomas Jefferson's estate is called? Anyone? No? Anyone? It's called Monticello. Or hold on. Or Monticello. No one remembers that? Okay, it's okay. Again, I do want to say that if you had watched or memorized Hamilton, like some of us might have, you would know that. So, in this wonderful place, here you have, this is right, Thomas Jefferson's house, his estate, and here you have the right, just Monticello. Now there's a graveyard here. Let's click on that graveyard. This is the Monticello graveyard. Well, who's buried in Monticello graveyard? All the people you'd expect to be buried in Monticello graveyard, right? Thomas Jefferson. Here was buried Thomas Jefferson and Red Burton. Who else is buried in the Monticello graveyard? Right, good question, no? Anyone know who else is buried there? Let me see if I can find it. It's not so easy to find always in Google. If not, I'll have to get it some other way. But let me just quickly see if I can find it. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's not. Then it's pretty obvious that's Jefferson's grave, but there's okay, so it's not here. Let me quickly find it for you. Let me quickly find it. So there you go. Rachel Machado Phillips Levy. Again, her name was Rachel Phillips when she was born. Her mother's name was Machado. So it's Rachel Machado Phillips, and she married a guy Levy. And this is her grave. And this grave, let's see if we can zoom in. Here it's not such a great picture. This is a better picture. She's buried also in Monticello. That's what she looked like. That's her grave. This is a better picture. You can see it. Rachel Phillips Levy, born in New York, married 1787. We just read about her wedding. She died in Monticello, erected by her son. Why do you think, and this is what it looks like, see, they actually cordoned off a section, the little Jewish section of the cemetery in Monticello. That's right. Here's the original gravestone to the memory of Rachel Phillips Levy, born, married, died 7 of Iyar at Monticello, Virginia. Why do you think there's a woman, a Jewish woman? Now, which Jewish woman? The daughter of Jonas Phillips in Monticello. Unbelievable story. And this is, again, we're going a little off topic. It's okay. We have time to go off topic. Rachel Phillips Levy, her son, was a very important American. Her son was named Uriah Levy. Uriah Levy was, again, a grandson of Jonas Phillips. Jonas Phillips had a daughter, Rachel Phillips Levy, and their son was Uriah Levy. And Uriah Levy was actually a naval commander. Again, a very important American person. We're not going to go into all the story about Uriah Levy. But what's interesting, if you're interested, it's in the handouts and in the video playlist. There's a little playlist of.
Welcome to another edition of Congregation Agudas Shalom's This Week in Jewish History.
Right, same as Commodore Uriah Levy. We're not going to get into that's what he looked like. Interesting fellow. You can Google him. We're not going to go into him too much because it's not that important for us. But what's interesting, again, here if you look at the find the grave for Rachel Machado, here it says her father, Jonas Levy, spouse, Michael Levy, siblings, and children. Her children was Uriah Levy. That's up here. Very interesting in of itself. So, why is she buried there? Well, what the point of the story is that a lot of the Jews, especially the Jews who were around the revolution, really loved the idea of revolution and really loved like Thomas Jefferson, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights. And Thomas Jefferson's estate fell into disrepair after he died. He owed a lot of money. He was a smart man, but he wasn't good with books. And they bought his estate. So Rachel Phillips Levy's son and grandson bought Monticello. And then they buried her on the estate. And to me, that's such an unbelievable melding of what we're talking about today. Here you have a random Jewish person and then you have a random account of her wedding, and she ends up being buried in Monticello, and meaning where the house and the estate of one of the founding fathers, the most important ones, Thomas Jefferson, and that becomes her house and where she's buried. So that shows that even though, yes, it's true, as Rena pointed out, there weren't many Jews who were vital to the revolution, but they were there, and they really believed in it. On the whole, we'll talk about those who didn't, but on the whole, they believed in it. And there is some, like you see, an overlap of some historical, events. Okay, so but again, is it the most historical? Probably not. So that's Rachel Levy. That's Jonas Phillips. Now, the reason Jonas Phillips is important is I know we're skipping ahead for a second. we might have to do some of the revolution next week because it's getting late. Jonas Phillips is famous for something very important, for some other reason. It's actually a very important thing that he did. I'm going to open it up here. Let me open up, give me a second to find it. Well, this is one of them. Here you have a document Jonas Phillips wrote to the president and members of the convention. So he's writing to the convention in Philadelphia. And he says to them, I write a letter and I noticed that the 13th United States of America said, I am a Jew from Philadelphia. I'm a people scattered and dispersed among all the nations. And I noticed that in the Pennsylvania Constitution, there is a section that says, I do believe in one God. Okay. That's so far so good. And I acknowledge the scriptures of old and new to be given by divine inspiration. And to swear and believe that the New Testament was given by divine inspiration is absolutely against the religious principle of a Jew. And it's against his conscience to take such an oath. By the above law, a Jew is deprived of holding any public office or place of government in Philadelphia. And this is an important point. So here you have, why is Jonas Phillips an important person? He's an important person because he is calling out and he is pointing out that just because America's freed and has a new country that's freed from England, they didn't automatically guarantee rights. Now, the Bill of Rights said that no one could persecute you for being Jewish. You have the right to your freedom of religion. But all that guarantees you is that no one's going to kill you. It doesn't make you equal. It doesn't make you have maybe you won't be able to become part of the government. Maybe you won't be able to become a president. Maybe you won't be able to swear in court. And it's not like some random possibility. You look at other handouts, the handouts that were handout class 3 primary source. The Maryland Constitution of 1776 says, if I can find it, that it is every duty of every man to worship God in such manner as he thinks most acceptable. All persons professing the Christian religion. So you can do whatever you want, but you got to be Christian. That every person appointed to any office of profit or trust shall make this, right? I'm not faithful to the King of Great Britain, and subscribe a declaration of his belief in the Christian religion. So if you lived in Maryland, if you said you're not a Christian, you couldn't make an oath. And again, New York, giving New York some credit here, New York was the first colony, says that in all such parts of the said common law, where are we? Here we are. Anywhere we are required by the benevolent principle of rational liberty, whereas a bigotry and wicked prince, right? This convention does further name by authority of the people, ordain, determine, and declare that the free exercise and enjoyment of religious profession of worship without discrimination shall forever hereafter be allowed within this, provided that liberty of conscience here ground that shall not be so construed to excuse the act of licentious. In other words, whereas a minister of the gospel by the fresh dedicated service of God, no minister of the gospel or priest of any denomination under any pretense, wherever, right, they don't have to serve. So this was a big deal. It was a big deal that New York, and it was a big deal that Jonas Phillips wrote to Philadelphia to point out. It says, "What am I going to do? I'm stuck." And this was a, so excuse me. It was, excuse me. It wasn't so simple that it was going to be, a yay, everyone's, no more king, no more Great Britain, everyone's good friends. It wasn't simple for the Jews that it was going to be that way. And this brings us to the reason to talk about Touro for a second. Now, I have open here let's go one at a time. If you go to Touro.edu, I think that's what it is. If you go to Touro.edu, let's do it together. And you go to the About, right? About Touro. About Touro. Okay, here we go. About Touro. our history. It's our history. Yes. So this is what it says now. Judah Touro gave generously. Dr. Lander founded Touro in 1970, of blessed memory, and he named it Touro because of Mr. Judah Touro. Mr. Judah Touro was an unbelievable philanthropist. This is what it says now. A few years ago, this is what it said, our history. 1790, George Washington visited the Touro synagogue and spoke about democracy, ethics, equal opportunity, and American ideal. And his visions inspired Isaac and Judah Touro, leaders in colonial America, etc. The Touro family was philanthropists. And I saw that many times, and I pointed out to Touro that it is very inaccurate. So let's go back let's go back slowly. So in 1790, George Washington wrote a letter to the Hebrew congregation of Newport, Rhode Island. He didn't speak there, but he wrote a letter there. Now, that letter, people don't realize, was actually in response to a letter that he was given, sent to him, hold on, by the Jews. The Jews, Moses Seixas, he was the warden, the Gabbai, wrote him a letter welcoming President Washington to Newport, Rhode Island. He says, we'll read part of it together. With pleasure, we reflect on those days, the days of difficulty when the God of Israel, who delivered David, shielded your head in the day of battle, and we are happy that you won. Now, deprived as we, Jews, have been of the invaluable rights of free citizens, we now, with a deep sense of gratitude, look at this government, which to bigotry gives no sanction, to persecution no assistance, and again, generally affords all, right? He's talking about the Bill of Rights, that we are protected. We're very happy and we're thrilled and we're great. Everything's great. And like Joshua, full right, we're gathered and be right, all wonderful things signed and by the congregation in August 1790. George Washington responded to that letter. And in a way, the response to the letter is better than the actual letter itself. He writes here, the citizens of the United States have a right to applaud themselves for giving to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. Now he writes a great line. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of. If it were the indulgence of one class of people, that another exercise of their inherent natural rights. So I tolerate you. That means, listen, you're crazy, but I got no choice. I got to tolerate you. The word tolerate means that I don't agree with you, I don't like you, but I'm willing to tolerate you. George Washington says, we're not tolerating each other. We're all equal. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens, giving it all on occasions their effectual support. Unbelievable. He said, may the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit safely under his own vine and fig tree, and none to be made afraid. So it's a beautiful letter. And it's a letter where George Washington went even further than what the Jews asked for. The Jew says, don't persecute us, tolerate us. And he said, we're not just tolerating you, you're equal citizens. And that's an unbelievable letter. That letter was written to the Hebrew congregation in Newport. Eventually, many, many years later, not in 1790, but in the 1800s, it will be renamed the Touro Synagogue. And because of that, there is a link between people's minds between the Touro Synagogue and George Washington's letter. And that is one of the reasons that Touro was named Touro. Now, what people don't realize is, if you look at our handouts, I think we'll end with this and then we'll have to continue next week. If you look at our handouts, and the handout is here. Look at this. Isaac Touro, Judah Touro's father, excuse me, was a loyalist. A loyalist means that he was the rabbi, the Chazan. He was the reader in Newport. and he supported the British. He didn't support the Americans. And what he did, he stayed in Newport when the British took over Newport. Not like Aaron Lopez, remember him, who ran away, but like he stayed. And you know what happened? For a while, that was great. But then the American won the war. And then Isaac Touro was in big trouble. And we have a letter that he wrote requesting from the British general, I need money. I need to run away. I can't stay here. They'll kill me. And that's true. After the war, unfortunately, I have to be honest, the Americans who won killed a lot of people who they viewed as loyalists. They were enemies. Here on Long Island, where I live, actually further in Long Island, that's a lot of what took place. Long Island was like a prisoner area for the British when the British took over, whatever. He says, please, I need to go to Jamaica. Why Jamaica? Because again, Jamaica is a British colony. I got to run away. I have no money. Please give me money. Give me an allowance. Let me run away. And he did. So Isaac Touro, with his son Judah Touro, who is the famous Touro we'll talk about, he ran away to Jamaica after the Revolutionary War because he had sided with the British. So they gave him money. He ran away, and we'll talk about that. So now, it's interesting. The Touro synagogue did not exist when George Washington showed up there. And if it would have been for the wrong reason, because Isaac Touro, who was the father, wasn't on the American side. His son, Judah Touro, the son of the loyalist, will end up being an American hero. But we will talk about him in the future. Being that it's 2:20, being that my voice is not 100% back, but it's almost 2 hours, we're going to stop here. There is a homework, and the homework is sort of about someone we have not introduced yet. So we have to sort of introduce him generally. We'll talk about more about him next time. One other very important American Jewish hero was the rabbi of the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue during the Revolutionary War. And his name was Gershon Seixas. His name was Gershon Mendes Seixas, really. I'm going to just pull up his Wikipedia page because that's just easier. Hold on. So here you have, his name is Gershom Mendes Seixas. Seixas, S-E-I-X-A-S is pronounced Seixas. This is the picture we have of him. So he was the leader of the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue. He wasn't a rabbi, he was a leader during the Revolutionary War. So I really wanted to talk about him. But maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to watch a little bit of a longer another reason we're ending early. I'm going to ask you to watch a little bit of a longer movie. The movie is about 30 minutes. Obviously, it's not a real movie. What happened? The actors. And I'm asking you random questions. But besides the actual random questions, I want you to pay attention to the content because this is a great. Instead of me talking and describing him, I think you'll learn a lot from the movie. And then there's a short assignment. And yeah, that's it. And it's due again, hopefully by next week. If you don't get a chance, also okay. But it'd really be great if you got it done before next week's class, because so you'll see that in the assignment. They'll be up in like 5 minutes. That's what I'll put. I just gotta edit, change the date, and etc. And that's the homework for next week. So it's about a half-hour video, about a few minutes of writing, and that's it. And I will see you all next week. It'll be up in a bunch of videos.
Thank you, Professor.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Can I talk?
Have a good week.
Have a good week.
Can I talk to you for a second?